An old Chinese proverb says, "Happy is the man without sickness, rich is the man with no debts." And that's pretty true to a certain extent. As most people know it, debt creates financial difficulties since borrowing money basically means taking money away from your future self. But today, we live in a world where debt is everywhere and makes up a significant part of our economy. Almost everyone uses debt, and the difference is some people will exploit it to their favor and others will misuse it. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Finance Guardian channel. It's no secret that the United States has embraced debt. Total US consumer debt has already reached $15 trillion, which means the average household has debt of over $5,300. Still, there is good news for you. Debt isn't always a bad thing. Considering that the majority of our debt is bad debt, this is most likely an unpopular opinion. If you have credit card debts, a car loan, and maybe a student loan, you're probably thinking it will take you decades to pay them all off. So what good can that possibly be? For a better understanding of how that can lead to something positive, let's take a look at how people with deep pockets still use that tactic to make even more money. Perhaps this might sound a little strange because why would anyone with a lot of money use debt in the first place? Debt is supposed to be for people who don't have money. But capitalism doesn't work like that. Debt can be a powerful tool if you know how to use it, and in this video, you will find out how rich people use debt to make even more money. Let's get right into it. Number 1. Starting a business. This might sound controversial since borrowing money to start a business is not a good idea. However, there are certain businesses, especially traditional businesses, where taking on debt can be the best option. Let's imagine that you want to sell pens. This is a very common product and is pretty much always in demand. The ideal scenario would be to fly to China and locate a factory that makes that kind of pen at a reasonable price and of good quality. If you purchased a container of pens, you would ship them to the US and distribute them among your clients. But nowadays, this is mostly done online with platforms like Alibaba. You don't have to travel to the factory unless it's a more complicated product. Now, here's the catch. You don't really need to pay for products to get them first. This is how it works. In the past half-century, China has become the world's factory, producing literally everything. Thousands of factories operate non-stop to produce everything the world needs, and in order to make it easier to sell, most of these factories are willing to lend you their products in exchange for payment sometime in the future. It's natural they won't lend to strangers, so you'll have to establish some sort of trust with them first. But that has been the method of doing business for the past 50 years. After the client sells the product in the US or anywhere else in the world, he pays the factory and borrows more products. Essentially, you're telling the factory you know how to make it, so I'll help you sell it. If I can sell it for anything more than this price, I'll have a profit. This strategy is great because it doesn't entail tying up your own capital. That is why selling is one of the most important skills you can ever learn. Debt can be detrimental to our finances if it is used incorrectly. The use of debt to start a business is never recommended, especially if you are inexperienced. Wealthy people invest time and resources into understanding debt and how it can benefit them. Number 2. Refinancing. Real estate is one of the most common ways people use debt to grow their wealth. In real estate, an investor can buy a property even if they do not have the money in hand to actually buy it. In this way, the investor can own a property and use it as a cash flow asset. Through borrowing money, they are able to leverage a larger asset. They can have others pay their debts, build their equity for them, and generate positive cash flow. Now, savvy investors can expand their wealth with a few other strategies. For example, let's say we spend $300,000 to buy this property. We make a down payment of $40,000 and we finance the balance of $260,000. While this piece of property may not be the prettiest, it is in a great location and the local local market here is booming. So we decide to spend an additional $10,000 to fix it up and improve its appearance. Due to the great location of the house and the increasing market value, we decide to get it reassessed. The property is now worth $360,000. We can now go to our bank and refinance the property based on this new figure. Our property's equity can be increased to $60,000 by adding this additional $60,000, or we can liquidate it by cashing out, borrowing from our own assets to invest in another property that can yield greater profits and expand our wealth. Number 3. Leverage. Leverage is another way many wealthy people use debt to make money. A typical investor puts his or her hard-earned money into an investment portfolio to grow over time. But some take advantage of leverage, which involves using debt in their portfolios to make more money in the long run. Suppose our friend Bob invests $100,000 into an investment portfolio that provides a 10% annual return. In this case, Bob will earn a return of $10,000. His friend Patrick also invests $100,000 in this portfolio, but he leverages it by 35%. This means that he has a total of $135,000 in his portfolio, $100,000 of his own money, and $35,000 in debt. By assuming a market return of 10%, Patrick would make $13,500 instead of the $10,000 Bob would have made. Patrick's return on investment climbs to 13.5% rather than the 10% normal. Even though this method produces higher returns, it does come with greater risk. Let's say that instead of increasing 10%, the market goes down 10%. The result in this case is that Bob will lose $10,000, while Patrick will lose over $13,000 since Patrick's portfolio is generally bigger than Bob's. Although leverage increases risk, it is widely used by sophisticated investors and hedge funds for long-term gains. Number 4. Short selling. An investor who goes long on a stock has bought it believing its price will rise in the future. In contrast, when an investor goes short, he expects a decline in the share price. Short selling involves selling a stock that the seller does not own. In more specific terms, a short sale is the sale of a security that is not owned by the seller but is promised to be delivered. While that may sound complicated, the concept is actually quite simple. Here's what happens. When you short sell a stock, your broker will lend it to you. It may be sourced from the brokerage's own inventory, from another customer of the firm, or from another brokerage firm. When shares are sold, the proceeds are credited to your account. Eventually, you will have to close the short by buying back the same number of shares as you sold, known as covering, and returning them to your broker. If the price drops, you will be able to repurchase the stock at a lower price and make a profit on the difference. If the stock price rises, you must buy it back at the higher price and you lose money. It's usually possible to hold a short for as long as you like, but if your lender wants back the stock you borrowed, you can be forced to cover. Brokerages cannot sell what they don't have, so yours must either come up with new shares to borrow or you must cover. This is known as being called away. It doesn't happen often, but it is possible when many investors sell a particular security short. Since you didn't own the stock but merely borrowed it and sold it, you must pay the lender of the stock any dividends or rights issued during that period. The stock could split in the middle of your short, so you'll be liable for twice the number of shares at half the price. Number 5. Credit score. It is clear that debt is a powerful tool. Debt is used in various ways by every successful business company or entrepreneur, especially if they have a proven business model. Almost every business borrows money to finance purchases. The point is to stop thinking that all debt is bad. Of course, high interest rate debts such as credit card debts are horrible. But the key to getting a low interest rate is to minimize the risks of loaning your money. So how do you do it? Establish yourself as a responsible borrower. The banks hold billions, if not trillions of dollars awaiting someone to borrow them. And even if there is no money, banks can create it out of thin air. And that is all the time that we have today, folks. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please do remember to hit that like button. If you're new around here, subscribe to our channel, and on your way out, please do remember to click on that bell icon too so you can remain updated about all of our future videos. You're welcome to the channel where you will learn the basics of personal finance in easy to understand language. We'll see you next time.